Hi, everybody. This is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto. Well, actually working with you to get political about what is going on in the world. I have with me Tom Luongo from Gold, Goats and Guns, and of course, Alexander Mercouris from the Duran.com. And once again, I'm pleased to have with me Munib Hamid. Munib is an independent journalist and political commentator from Pakistan. He's in Islamabad. And in this program, in this video, we're going to be finding out what is going on in Pakistan, because also it does tie in with the global macroeconomic picture. So Alex, Tom and Munib, thank you so much. And Tom and Alex, you guys, I say you have no need for any instructions. We do this every month, and thank you so much. And I have links to all your stuff in the description below. And Munib Hamid, I'll have a link to his Twitter channel so you can follow him and the work that he does. Munib, do you just want to start by introducing yourself briefly, and then we can get going?
All right, so you did the introduction, but right, I'm a journalist here working with the state media right now. I used to work with the Indus News. I was the international news channel from Pakistan. So right now working with the state media, and I'm also running my own media institute here in Islamabad. And of course, I'm a political analyst as well.
Great, thank you. And we've done a couple of interviews before, finding out what's going on in Pakistan. Now, how are we going to do this? Is I'm going to facilitate the conversation, and then Alex and Tom, at some point, will get to ask questions and everything. I'm going to start by just giving a bit of a background about Pakistan and why it's so critical and important. So it's a former British Commonwealth colony. It's no longer part of the Commonwealth. It's the second most populous nation, 230 million people, after Indonesia, the fifth most populous nation in the world. It's got nuclear weapons, the only Muslim country with nuclear weapons, and it borders Afghanistan, Iran, and China, and it has unfriendly relations with another nuclear power, India. I think they've been to war for three times since 1948, since they got independence, and it is largely been within the US sphere of influence. So the US used it as a base to arm the Mujahideen when the Soviet Union were occupying Afghanistan. They've used it for when the US went to war with the Taliban. And of course, it's useful because it's right next to the Iran, with which the US has had a Cold War since 1979. Okay, so that's the background to Pakistan. And then there was a coup in, I think, April, where essentially American diplomats bribed MNAs, members of the National Assembly, equivalent to congressmen or members of parliament, to vote against Imran Khan, his party, which is the PTI. Imran Khan's party resigned, except the speaker, who's from the opposition, hasn't accepted the resignations en masse, because that would trigger elections. He's accepting them slowly. And here we are now, and what's happened, we've had journalists being arrested and tortured, we've had Shabazz Gill, an advisor for PTI, being tortured, and we've had Imran Khan with the threat of being threatened with arrest and several charges. We have floods ravaging southern Pakistan, we have 42% inflation rate, growing unemployment problem, and growing poverty. Yes. Okay, Munib, anything you want to say to add to that, right? Oh, and Imran Khan's crime? He wanted to do a deal with Russia to buy cheap gas and cheap grain to heat and feed the Pakistani people.
So let's start with the inflation. So Imran Khan's government was, toppled in April. According to the PTI narrative, it was a US coup. And the 4 years of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's rule in Pakistan, the people here were suffering due to high inflation. So there's a problem here in Pakistan with the people here, because they have a very short-term memory, because they forget recently what's happened, later on, but they just remember what's just happened just recently. So in the 4 years of PTI, there was extreme inflation. Of course, we saw the dollar rise, we saw the fuel rise, we saw the utilities rise, we saw the industries being destroyed. And later on, Khan, he woke up and like, oh my God, just industries are being destroyed due to my policies and stuff. So he started focusing on them, and then he started to recover them as well. So there was already a very high number of inflation during Imran Khan's tenure. So now let's jump forward to the coup now. So the coup happened in April, And what Imran Khan, of course, he had information, of course, that there is something already being planned. Like we had information that there is something going on, and Imran Khan it might be taken off the prime ministership in April, and we had this information by December that there's something going on in those halls. So what Imran Khan did was he started started planting economic landmines. So because he wanted to, bust open those people, those opposition guys who are going to topple him. So when they come to power, they'll be clueless. They'll have no idea what to do. So what happened when the opposition came into power and those economic landmines started to, blast? So which caused a massive surge in the inflation because it's like Imran Khan trapped the upcoming government with such policies that only he understood or his team could manage. Some such formulas that only his finance minister could solve, and not the finance minister of the opposition who is to come to power. And exactly, we saw this in many interviews and occasions where journalists asked questions to the former PTI government, that you guys planted economic landmines, economic policies, landmines, which the new government could not manage, they could not handle, and due to which there is a significant amount of rise in inflation. So in the current inflation, Imran Khan's party also has a hand in that. And of course, this government cannot be defended. I mean, this government, of course, 70% of the government, of the cabinet that we have here are crooks. They've been, in jail. They have cases against them running on in the courts. We've seen a lot of, witnesses getting heart attacks, out of the blue. People hanging themselves, in their rooms, in their apartments, and those were key witnesses to the cases. There was this Maqsood Chaprasi, he was like the office boy or the peon of the current prime minister, I believe, and he had some billions of rupees in his account, and so he died in Dubai with a heart attack. So that was also something pretty shocking. And then, of course, in our cabinet, if I am to talk to from the perspective of the ISPR, that's the military's media wing. So we have a person in the federal government right now who the ISPR termed as a raw funded agent, and is currently right now working in the Pakistan's government.
Okay,
so it's pretty bad here. It's pretty bad.
For people who don't know, RAW is the Indian Secret Service.
Yes, RAW is the Indian Secret Service, and I remember this. There was also a guy. He was bailed out of jail just to cast a vote against Imran Khan, and then he spent a few days outside, like a holiday or something, and then when Imran Khan was brought down, so he was like, "All right, now you can go back to your jail and you enjoy your term there." So. I mean, it's what can I say? What can I say? I mean, it's amazing here. It's amazing here. Trust me, it's amazing. You find so much action, thrill, suspense. It's like a full Hollywood action. It's like a season. It's like Game of Thrones here in Pakistan, a living Game of Thrones.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Terrible. Tom, either of you want to ask Munib anything?
Go ahead, Alex.
Alex, you're on mute.
I'm muted. So there's lots of things one could say about this. And thank you, first of all, Munib, for your introduction. Now, just a few things. I mean, obviously, I live in Britain, and Britain has strong historic connections with Pakistan. Maybe not the kind of connections that people in Pakistan want to remember. We were the former imperial power in that part of the world. I mean, our rule is not perhaps fondly remembered there. But the result is there's a lot of Pakistani people in Britain, and I think there's a quite fair amount of knowledge by people who take an interest in Pakistani affairs in what goes on in Pakistan. I don't mean granular knowledge, but one does have a certain amount of knowledge. And a few things to say. First of all, it's always been my impression that Pakistan is one of those countries which ought to be doing a lot better than it is. It's got a big population, a young population. It's got a lot of very educated people. One hears stories about the fact that, things in Pakistan, they actually work. So, telephones work, roads are, reasonably well maintained, lots of things work reasonably efficiently in Pakistan, more so historically than in India, for example. So, and of course, it's very strategically located. It's a pivotal country, just as Rich was saying at the beginning. It's got lots of possibilities from the fact that it's at the crossroads with Iran, with China, with the former Soviet states to the north, Afghanistan, India below. So it's a country which ought to be able to leverage all these advantages and to make the most of them, capitalize on them, and succeed. What's always held it back are three things, in my opinion. Firstly, a profoundly corrupt political system. Secondly, an overwhelmingly powerful military, which has, through various means, managed to basically create itself into a kind of state within the state in Pakistan. So that sometimes, at least externally, one almost feels that Pakistan is a military with a nation, a state attached to it, that it has a kind of very predatory approach to the nation that it runs. And thirdly, incessant interference by foreign powers. And that these three things, and when I say foreign powers, I use the plural because obviously the dominant power is the United States, but China has influence there too. India, as you just said, has influence also. And of course, in its own way, I'm sure Britain has influence in some ways. I can't imagine that they've completely removed themselves from the scene. I mean, not knowing the British, I'm sure they're there in some form. So, and of course, these foreign powers have their own interests, which are not necessarily identical to Pakistan's. Now, a couple of years ago, we had this former cricketer, Imran Khan, become Prime Minister. And I don't know to what extent this was ever true in Pakistan itself, but the impression I got from Pakistani people here in Britain is that there was a huge amount of hope attached to this man, that he was going to be the break with the system. He was going to put the military in its place. He was going to end the political system that had existed, which you've described, the extraordinary corruption, the fact that many of them are crooks and gangsters, essentially, that he was going to make Pakistan finally a truly independent country, not dependent on foreign powers. So, I think it's widely accepted. I think people in Pakistani community that I know, Pakistani people that I know in Britain, are fairly sophisticated, and they accept and they acknowledge that perhaps his actual performance was not fully up to his promise, to the expectations that were attached to him. But the mechanism of his removal and the restoration of the old order was like a kick in the teeth. It was like suddenly, everything that he stood for was thrown away, thrown back into the Pakistani people's face. Their hopes, their aspirations were just basically sat upon and soiled, if you like, by these various power centers in Pakistan. And I have never seen in all my time, and my memory extends all the way back to the Bangladesh War of 1971, I have never seen people, Pakistani people in Britain, so angry about what has happened. Now, do we have the same anger in Pakistan as we do in Britain?
Yeah, Alex, we do have the same anger in Pakistan. It's because we enjoy here in Pakistan almost a population of 65% youth, and that is between the age of 25 and 35. And 90% of the youth is standing behind Imran Khan. And of course, now the youth, because of Imran Khan, this change has come in Pakistan, that the people have started to understand the politics, and they have started to understand the dynamics of Pakistani politics. They now understand where the decisions are being made and who is really in power and who is controlling these chess pieces. So after Imran Khan, he spoke to the people. He told them what really happened. Like there was this U.S. letter, and then like there was a national conference upon that U.S. letter, and then no action was taken to stop that U.S. letter in intervention through various means here in Pakistan to topple his government. So the public did buy his narrative. And the public completely stand behind Imran Khan here. And it is because the public here in Pakistan have seen 30 years of the rule of Zardari as Pakistan People's Party. And they have seen the rule of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, that is of Nawaz Sharif. And for 30 years, for 3 decades, the people have become really worn out. They're tired, of these people not coming up to the mark, not performing, not even. This is going to be. This might come as shocker to you, or it might not. But majority of Pakistani people do not even have clean drinking water to drink. It's been 75 years since independence, and the Pakistanis are still struggling for the basic needs. And these basic needs, if we are to compare to a country in Africa, there might be many examples coming out of Africa that at least they are providing the basic needs to the population. So the Pakistani population have started to rise up. They've started to question the powers, and this is because of Imran Khan and his narrative. He has, injected politics in the population, in the people of Pakistan, and they are starting to question. And they're not starting to question Imran Khan right now because they do not see any other idol, they do not see any other leader who they can follow right now, because there is no option besides Imran Khan. So Imran Khan also enjoys the support of those people who are tired of Nawaz Sharif, who are tired of the other politicians. So he also enjoys that support. So the people right now in Pakistan are really angry. Right now, the inflation in Pakistan just hit about 45% after April. Just in a few months, the inflation has hit 45% here in Pakistan. And it's becoming impossible, even for the millionaires, to survive here in Pakistan. And the people here in Pakistan are completely behind Imran Khan, and they are showing his support. And we've also seen that through the by-elections, where Imran Khan swept Punjab, and right now he also won another seat in Karachi. And now, before elections, Imran Khan is going to do the same thing. What he did in Punjab, he's going to go city to city, district to district, and hold those public gatherings there, and make the people aware of what's really happening. And because I find it, Imran Khan might be targeting the way he's done in Punjab. He wants to do the same in Sindh, because if he is to win elections, he needs to come in power with 2/3 majority. So he needs to have Sindh in power. Punjab alone is not going to work. And right now, he is enjoying the most populous time of his life here in Pakistan, but not just in Pakistan, even internationally, even in the world right now. We saw all the international media cover his story.
Ek minute. So I'm going to respond to something to expand on what you said, and also as an answer to what Alex said. And then, Tom, I'm going to turn to you. So, Alex, I said to you before we started recording that my auntie G, imagine a middle-aged auntie, right? They've gone on demos, which would never, these are middle-class, middle-aged, affluent, comfortable Pakistanis. They've gone on demos. So people are enraged. And what we've had in Pakistan is we've had the dynasty of the Bhutto family, which is the PPP, which are Sindh-based. And then we've had the PML, Pakistan Muslim League, which is Punjabi-based, which is Nawaz Sharif's family. And traditionally, Pakistani politics has been with tribal loyalties. through the provinces. What Imran Khan has done is he's broken that mold. He's popular all over Pakistan. There were recent elections in Punjab where his party, the PTI, won 16 out of the 20 seats. They now hold power in the province of Punjab, which is the most populous and the richest province. It's also where the army is out of largely. It's a Punjabi army. They already have Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, formerly known as Northwest Frontier Province. In Sindh, there was an election for an M&A parliamentary seat, and the PTI candidate got 29,000 votes, and all the opponents got 13,000 votes. So now, I said earlier on that the speaker has refused to accept the resignations en masse because that would trigger an election. He's accepting them little by little. So we have 9 parliamentary seats up for election. And Tom, take a note of this date, September the 25th. Right? Right?
I didn't know that.
That's right. Some of the seats are in Punjab, some in Karachi, some in North, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the north, right? And what the government are doing, this current government, are doing whatever they can in order to prevent Imran Khan from running, because what's likely to happen is those 9 seats will be swept by the PTI with increased majorities. It won't be enough for them to run the government. But just to answer your question, there is a groundswell of support for Imran Khan. I have family who are in the armed forces in Pakistan, and they are really for Imran Khan. And I have family who are in the civil service and the judiciary and middle class and in businesses in Lahore, where I'm from, and therefore, and his rallies are extraordinarily massive. So that's an answer to your question. Tom, anything you want to say or ask? Over to you.
Well, when I'm going to listening to Munib speak, it's very obvious that the situation in Pakistan is exactly the same as this here in the United States with Donald Trump. It's exactly the same. And what you're seeing in the, and I'm going to ask some specific questions in a minute, but I just got done talking to my friend and partner in the newsletter, Dexter White, yesterday. We were talking about Florida politics, for example. The grand jury in Ron DeSantis got rid of 4 of the school board members in Broward County. Now, Broward County is like the home of critical race theory and Davos for lack of a better term, in Florida. And now they've removed and now have at the school board level. And this is very important because we already own the politics at the state level. But to reform the society from within and to stop this, we have to reform the school boards here in the United States. And every major population center that was democratically run by the school board mafia has been deposed in Florida, with the exception of Gainesville and Tallahassee that nobody cares about because it's only together they only take up 400,000 people. We're talking about Broward, that's West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, Miami-Dade, Tampa, Orlando. All of those school boards have been destroyed, and the reason why? Because average middle class women who have never been political in their lives have stood up at school board meetings and go, "You want to do what to my children? No. How do I run for school board again? How do I get rid of you people? Oh, okay, this is how we do it." And because these elections have always been minimally attended, when they were very easy to take over, they're very easy to deal with. And what we've been seeing, and look at how the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago a couple of weeks ago on very flimsy reasons, the same way that they went after Imran Khan for very flimsy reasons, simply because this is now pure rank third world banana republic style. I mean, even banana republics are embarrassed about the way these police are operating in open. The open to enforce a foreign political agenda on an effectively a politically occupied country. And Pakistan is politically occupied territory in the same way that the Americans are politically occupied territory. It's the same people, by the way. So, and we need to realize and call a spade a spade. So it's very interesting. I've been watching Khan for since he was deposed. I'm like, is he going to be able to basically rise up and take a popular wave in? Because we have the same kind of delaying tactics happening in Italy, right? The same kind of delaying procedural stuff, minutia that they play, these games they play in order to hold the populace out of power in like Italy, and we've seen it and seen them play these games in even the Netherlands. For Christ's sake, it's everywhere, and it's the same tactics over and over, and it's the same people over and over again. And so, Munib, what I've heard from you is really encouraging, because at some point, lies are impossible to defend because they're too expensive to defend. This is a core belief of mine, that the truth sells itself and lies are expensive. And while Imran Khan, like Donald Trump, was less than effective, he was also never given the chance to be effective because of the entrenched political powers. The best you can do in your first go round with this is to expose the level of corruption and get the groundswell of popular support. I don't know. I think is that an accurate analysis? Because that's the way it's felt over here in the United States.
So, Tom, Imran Khan was a weak leader, although he was a strong politician before he came into power. So, in 2018, Imran Khan, his victory was based on electables. So they were not really his party members. So they were not really the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf politicians who joined Imran Khan or, who struggled with Imran Khan over the years. So those electables were somehow, pushed into PTI, so that, the PTI can gain the amount of seats required to become, to take the federal power.
So, Munib, 1 second, just to clarify things for people who don't know. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is the full name for PTI. That's Imran Khan's party, for people who don't know. And what Munib is saying is that, this is what I understand it, Munib, and then I'll allow you to continue, is that the people who campaigned with Imran Khan, who were the driving force behind his rise to power, they weren't the ones who actually got elected. What actually happened was you had a lot of M&A switching sides to ride the shirt tails of Iran.
We have rhinos here in the United States. It's the same kind of
a lot here.
Clarify that. Thank you, Munib. Please carry on.
So when he came into power, of course, he was a weak leader because he had to depend on those electables, right? He couldn't really fulfill his agendas because now there are two analyses here. One is that Imran Khan, of course, he got tired of his 23 or 24 years of struggle and he wanted prime ministership. He said, all right, just give it to me now through electables or through whatever piece of cheesecake you want. Just give me the prime ministership, right? So this is one analysis. And of course, there's another analysis that is that also the system running Pakistan thought, okay, all right, let's just give Imran Khan a side. Let's just side with him and let's just give him a try to lead Pakistan. But of course, as Imran Khan has said, major decisions of Imran Khan's government were not coming from Imran Khan or from his cabinet. This is something that Imran Khan has accepted on air, on live TV programs, in his speeches. So that shows that Imran Khan was being dictated about major decisions himself. So he really could not come up to the expectations of the people. So when Imran Khan started his politics, so he was really against the dynasty politics, right? So he said that I am going to make a fresh team. It's going to be of technocrats. It's going to be of educated professional individuals. Even if I have to drag them from around the world, I am going to do that. So when PTI came into existence and when they started to get popular, we saw a lot of professionals and experts, professionals coming from all over the world to join Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. It's like, all right, we see hope here with Khan. And then what Khan did is like he started plucking out those people who sacrificed their careers, their lives for Pakistan. They came to join Pakistan here. They came to join PTI here. They were knocked out. And then these electables and these people from other political parties, who you call rhinos, we call lotas here, started to join into PTI. So this is one thing, of course, when you are, derivating from your own ideologies, you're getting off-road on your own policies. So this is what weakens you as a leader, and then eventually that shows that you are only power hungry. And he had 4 years, and in the 4 years, as Rich here said, he has only disappointed the masses. And now, miraculously, now trust me, if you question any person here in Pakistan, he's going to say that this is a miracle and Khan has been saved, or he is saved miraculously. Because if Khan was to complete his 5 years tenure, if he was to complete his government, literally his popularity level was at 7% in March. and he was not going to be voted by any single Pakistani in the general elections. And just before April, every Pakistani, because of high inflation and no performance at all, these people were crying to our power arenas and to the people to take him off. So something miraculously happened, and Khan was able to turn the tables, and and Khan here he is right in front of us.
The question I always have when I watch something, I watch someone like a figure like Khan, who's supposed to be a change agent, who's obviously hated by the powers that be. I call them Davos. It's very clear that they spend their entire time undermining him to the point and blaming him for everything that doesn't get done. They did the same thing with Donald Trump for 4 years. Trump's approval rating was 20 points under what it should have been, and Trump didn't get half of what he wanted to get done, if he got anything done at all, other than just to slow them down for 4 years, right? And so, I mean, that's the same. We have the same ennui with Donald Trump. Like, well, dude, why didn't you actually use the executive branch the way you could have used it? By the way, Obama would put on a masterclass for 8 years. All you had to do was follow him, right? But he didn't do it because of his personal deficiencies as a person and whatnot. And it's funny for someone who comes from outside of politics like that. They have to learn the ropes. It takes them. That whole first term is almost the time it takes to learn just how badly things are stacked against you. So I'm not absolving Khan of anything here. I get it, but so much of this just feels manufactured. That you go in with good intentions, but you have no support whatsoever, and the system knows how to marginalize you and then blame you for everything that doesn't work, and then they just turn around and use the mouthpiece and the house organs to blame you because you're the guy in charge. And this is the funny part about what Joe Biden's trying to do. It's now biting Joe Biden in the ass for the same reason, in that dude, inflation showed up on your watch. Doesn't matter that you built it. Y'all built it in during the CARES Act in 2020. Now we have it, and you're going to get blamed for it. And you get blamed for $4 a gallon gasoline, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So.
This is lost Munib's connection. I think Munib, you've frozen. When you come back in, please. I just want to say something. Lotas has a double meaning in Urdu. So on the one hand, people who spin, who turn around. It's also the can used by Muslims to perform their ablutions. So,
yeah.
Oh wow, that's funny.
That's right. And also, Tom, what you were saying, Corbyn had the same problem.
Yeah.
As part of the Labour Party, he was thwarted.
Absolutely.
And also, I think Salvini as well.
Yeah. Anybody from outside the system is always done. It's always had this done. It's funny, guys. I was doing this as a weird side note to all this. Remember, I've been doing a review of Stanley Kubrick for the last week or two since I didn't have an internet service. And interestingly enough, I'm going over and watching some of this stuff, and I remember going back right before he died, right before Eyes Wide Shut, his last film came out, that there was all of this talk about how Stanley Kubrick was a tyrant and he was eccentric and he destroyed people's lives, and maybe he was a little recluse, and they were doing the nuts and sluts thing on Stanley Kubrick because Eyes Wide Shut had the whole Rothschild orgy thing going on in the middle of the movie. And any time you touch the third rail of real international politics, even Stanley Kubrick was not immune to these media tactics. Everybody is gettable from that, because if you just repeat the lie over and over and over again, Goebbels was right about this, and we see it everywhere. So I'm always just really, whenever I see somebody who's so hated, I like that guy. That's the guy I like, because if they hate them, I like them. Because that's usually the reason why we don't like them, right?
They hate Corbyn, and they give Blair a platform. Okay,
Okay,
Alex, please
go
ahead.
I mean, there is a fundamental difference, which is that the United States has never, in its time, had outright military dictatorships. It's not had coups. It's not had. I mean, it's had a constitutional system which has been far more solid. Now, Pakistan, despite having many of the advantages that we've said, since independence, it's struggled to develop a stable political system. And that, of course, brings me directly to the next question, because, of course, we now have a massive challenge from Imran Khan and the movement that has been built up around him, which is clearly much bigger than himself. It is highly dangerous to the political class, to the deep state in Pakistan. You can almost say that in Pakistan, the deep state is the state. There's no real distinction as far as I can see. Now, what will they do? How far will those who have the levers of power in Pakistan go in order to stop Imran Khan? They've already tried to bring this ludicrous case against him, which is ludicrous. But I mean, you were talking about terrorist charges, and that's extremely worrying and very serious. And consider the part of the world we're talking about. This is the part of the world where, you know, Al Qaeda used to operate, that kind of thing. So, you know, if you talk about terrorism there, it's ominous. How far will they go? Are we at risk of a coup? Is there a possibility that the military could step in? It's happened before in Pakistan. I can remember it happening many times. Is there a real danger? And if it happens, will the military, which has up to now been a disciplined institution in Pakistan, will it hold? Is there any danger of the military fracturing? I say danger. Is there any possibility of the military fracturing?
Munib, thank you, Alex. Before you answer that, let me just fill something in. So Shahbaz Gill, it was an advisor, a member of the PTI. He was arrested on charges of sedition because he said on ARY News, which is an independent TV station in Pakistan, that army officers shouldn't obey illegal orders. Makes sense. I'm sure that's in the Pakistani constitution and the army's rule of conduct. But he was charged with sedition for saying that. ARY News lost their license to broadcast within Pakistan for their TV channel because they've been pro-Imran Khan. Shahbaz Gill has been tortured while in custody. He's still in custody. And Imran Khan on August the 20th gave a speech at a rally where he said he was going to pursue legal cases against the Deputy Inspector General of the Police, the Inspector General of the Police, and the magistrate that issued the arrest warrant for Shahbaz Gill. That's what the terrorism charge is. So going through legal means, through court cases, now amounts to terrorism. That's just to fit it in for people who are watching this and aren't aware. So please, Munib.
All right. So now just to comment on what Rich said here, what the current government is doing to the PTI members is exactly what the PTI government did to the then opposition. They filed fake cases on Rana Sanaullah. You know, imagine if you are a drug dealer and you know it's something illegal, right? And how stupid would you be if you're carrying like 1,000 kilograms of cocaine in the back of your trunk, you know? So they filed some fake charges against him. They arrested him also. They also arrested Saad Rafiq, and these people were also tortured. So basically, what's happening right now, it's like a tit for tat situation.
Sorry,
but of course, I do not.
These are M&As of the.
Yes.
Okay, PML. Okay, good.
Yes,
right. Thank you.
So what's happening right now is basically just a tit for tat for what the PTI government did when they were in power to the then opposition, when those people were not in power, and when the then opposition right now who is in power is doing these sort of things to the people who are not in power. So basically, this is a tit for tat, and of course, it should not happen either way. Is torture or these fake cases should not be. This is not a way to move forward. And to Alexander's question about the military's intervention in Pakistan or another coup, so it's a no. It's a no. After we've seen, the huge public response to what's happened here in Pakistan and their reaction and their anger. And there is no way that there is going to be a military coup in Pakistan. They cannot simply afford it. And if God forbid something like that happens, so the next public gathering or the next place where the people are going to target is not going to be D-Chalk, certainly, because this public is really angered. And that is going to be something like the military is giving the public an opportunity. All right, you can come and release your anger here with us. So that is not an option, not under these circumstances. No. What I believe is going to happen in the future is maybe going to be some time buying, like they have done since April. They've been able to buy some time, and to drag on the time to when the elections are due. And the current government is going to try to perform somehow with the support internally and externally so that they show something to the public that they have performed, and of course they have to downplay Imran Khan, and that is through cutting down inflation, largely, not just on in small backs. They have to do something very largely. And to the military thing, it's really impossible under these conditions. It is completely impossible here in Pakistan.
Well, can I just quickly say then that is already a major gain, because in previous periods when there was political turmoil in Pakistan, there were possibilities, there were danger. I mean, it happened that the military intervened. So the fact that the population is so activated, so energized, that the military has to stand aside already means that one of the major power centers in Pakistan is starting to be weakened. Now, I mean, it reminds me a little bit here, I will say, it reminds me a little bit of Turkey, where, again, the military had extraordinary power in Turkey. I mean, it was the dominant institution in Turkish political life right up until the late 1990s. And the fact that it's been sidelined in Turkey, whatever your views about Erdogan and his movement, when I have great misgivings about it, that is a major step forward and a huge advance in Turkish society. And if this fact can be consolidated in Pakistan as well, so that military interventions are no longer a possible thing, it will be not just good for Pakistan internally, but it will massively improve the country's international image. It will transform it, in fact.
Yeah, no, I'm going to second Alex's point there and go one step further and say it'll have a massively stabilizing effect on the entirety of Central Asia, because once you stop the process of, because and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but you also not only have the military as the issue, but you also have the ISI, the Pakistani intelligence services, which are, and if when I remember, they work for different people. Like, like one is like highly aligned with the Saudis, the other is highly aligned with somebody else, and they shift back and forth depending on who's paying them enough money. So like the whole thing is a hotbed of real corruption. What I've just noticed, I haven't been able to keep all the players straight, because if I did, then I wouldn't be able to wouldn't be able to look at anything else, because Pakistani politics is so freaking interesting. Seriously, it is. You're right. I mean, Munib, it is like Game of Thrones, right? It's almost like, or Dune or whatever. Pick your IP of choice here, but I can't keep up with who's changing sides, and all I can note is that it's all in flux, and because it's all in flux, what you're seeing is, I see very big desperation moves. This move to remove Khan the way they did was, in my mind, incredibly desperate. The same way they moved against Donald Trump the way they did. It's a pure weak play. This is a play you make out of weakness, out of strength. And it's a complete bluff. And I think what you're saying is that, that bluff has effectively been called, because there's no chance that the military is going to back this play if the people decide to choose wrongly, as the case may be. And so that's very, very interesting. And now with the changes to the entirety of the Central Asian architecture, with the U.S. no longer in Afghanistan, being pushed out of Syria, with the Russians becoming everybody's friend across the region. Hey, everybody, you can have pipelines and power plants and whatever you want, we'll build it for you. We're happy to. What do you need? Like, it's all of these old relationships and dynamics are falling apart, and they're in flux, and we don't know how they're going to basically shake themselves out. But the people are beginning to assert themselves in such a way that they're saying, we want this. And once the people finally say that, I think we can finally put a lot of this confusion about what's going on in Pakistan to rest. I hope, because nothing would make the world a more stable place.
Exactly. It's true.
Munib, I want to ask you a question, which is, so we got these court cases against Shahbaz Gill for sedition, and against Imran Khan for under Section 7 of the Terrorism Act, I don't know what, incitement or something, right, for threatening a court case, right? What's the likely outcome, and how corrupt and captured are the judiciary?
So the outcomes of Shahbaz Gill's case, eventually is going to be released, sooner or later. You cannot just keep him there. and they're not going to arrest Imran Khan. Of course, they cannot afford to arrest Imran Khan. They can never arrest Imran Khan. And Shahbaz Gill is going to be released sooner or later, of course. As I said, what they are doing to PTI right now, it's what PTI did to them, a few years back. So when their heart, when their anger is cooled down, it's like, all right, okay, TK, we've had enough of this thing. So all right, just release him. So they're going to release him soon. So just going to make him enjoy some of the perks he once gave to the people in opposition. So after that, it's going to be all easy.
Right. Okay. And then we'll have the elections on September the 25th, which PTI likely to sweep.
No, I don't think so. The elections are going to happen any sooner. I think they're going to happen on schedule.
The 9 parliamentary by-elections. September.
Oh, you're talking about the by-elections, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Alex. Tom, anything else for you to ask Munib?
Yeah, I do. Where is all this going to end? How is it going to end? Let's assume there are these elections. I mean, Imran Khan wins, presumably. What then? What next? I mean, does he come in an energized leader? Does he carry out some of the big changes that he's been talking about? Or will we go back to the weak leader that we had before, who basically ran the system exactly as other Pakistani leaders before him? I mean, he's going to have to rise to the challenge, if you like, if he's going to fulfill the expectations of his supporters who've been mobilized in this extraordinary way.
So Imran Khan has always said that the failure of his government, or the failure that he has not been able to perform, has been mainly due to his team. The advisors. He's been surrounded with. So, and the people have, they've somehow bought the narrative. Like it wasn't Imran Khan's fault. He couldn't perform. It was the people around him. So the people have bought this thing, right? So they have forgiven Imran Khan for the last 4 years. Like, all right, it was your first term, you were new to the system, you didn't understand things. All right, we give you that. And all right, we understand that you had these people around you, they were not sincere with you, they were, advising you wrongly, blah, blah, blah. The people have bought this narrative, right? Right now, Imran Khan is really popular here in Pakistan. And if there are elections, even in 2 months or 4 months, or even in 6 months, Imran Khan is going to sweep the elections if there is no rigging in the elections. And of course, Imran Khan is not going to go into elections until a few amendments have been undone. For example, he wants the electronic voting machines to conduct the elections. He wants the overseas voting rights of the Pakistanis. These are two things, two demands Imran Khan is going to put. And sooner or later, whether you have elections after November or you have elections in March, May, whatever, whenever you have elections, Imran Khan is not going to go into the elections without these two things being undone. Because the current government, they cut out the voting rights of the overseas Pakistanis, and they threw out the EVM machines out of the the election process. So Imran Khan is not going to go into elections with without these two amendments. And once he does go into elections, there are 90% chances that he is going to win a majority of the elections, and he is going to come back even more stronger. And right now, according to these popularity levels that he is enjoying right now, so there's a very easy saying, even a blind man would be able to say, like, he's going to get 2/3 majority in the lower house. He already has a majority in the upper house. And he's also eyeing, once he does come with a 2/3 majority in power, if he does, which he is likely to come, unless, some magical things happen again, like they have been happening with Pakistan for the last 75 years, and something miraculously changes the election results, or something like what's happened in the US with Trump. But, he is going to come back, and he is poised to change the system of Pakistan from a parliamentary democracy to a presidential democracy, in which he is going to enjoy the power of autocracy. Be him having the sole power in the country, and I believe in a country like Pakistan, if he is able to do that, that is going to be a major change, and that might be the the future opening to us here, because in Pakistan, a lot of people enjoy supreme power. And, if the supreme power is centered in one place, so that might be something positive for Pakistan.
Can I just make a quick observation, which is that, of course, in classical Greece, the evolution was from oligarchy to what was called tyranny, ruled by one person, to democracy. The tyranny didn't quite mean what it means in modern language, but it was seen often as the essential transition in order to achieve democracy. So maybe a very powerful president might actually not be a bad thing for Pakistan. Just saying.
Yeah, no, it does sound very interesting. It sounds like